Welcome to r/Payback.
I'm Emily, 28 years old, and engaged to Jake. We've been together for almost 4 years, living in a cramped one-bedroom apartment in the city. Our relationship has been mostly great, supportive, loving, and full of shared dreams. Jake has always talked about building a future with me, moving somewhere bigger, and finally having a home of our own. I thought those dreams would come true soon, but nothing prepared me for the surprise he planned. One chilly Friday evening, Jake pulled me aside with a mysterious smile, telling me he had something special to show me. He insisted I dress warmly and keep my eyes closed while he drove. My heart raced with excitement and curiosity. Was this the moment he'd been hinting at? Was it finally time for us to leave the tiny apartment and start fresh? As we drove, I tried to imagine what it could be. Maybe a new apartment or a piece of land? I trusted Jake completely, so I didn't question anything. But even in that moment, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that something didn't feel quite right. Maybe it was the way Jake's hands tightened on the steering wheel, or the silence that hung heavy in the car. Either way, I pushed the feeling away, eager to see what awaited me. When Jake finally told me to open my eyes, we were standing in front of a beautiful 2-story house. It was nighttime, and the porch lights cast a warm glow over the manicured lawn. The house was everything I'd dreamed of. Big windows, a porch swing, and enough space for a garden. There was a "for sale" sign out front, but Jake quickly pulled it aside to reveal another sign underneath that read, "Under contract." His eyes sparkled with pride as he told me this was our future home. I couldn't believe it. The excitement bubbled up inside me as I imagined our life here. Sunday mornings in the kitchen, barbecues in the backyard, a space where we could start a family. Jake handed me a folder filled with what looked like official documents, purchase agreements, mortgage papers, and keys. He told me he'd been secretly working on this for months, saving every penny to make it happen. His confidence made me trust him even more. I sat on the porch swing, holding the keys tightly. The moment felt surreal, like a dream finally coming true. I glanced up at Jake, who was beaming with happiness. For a few minutes, everything felt perfect. But as the night went on, a tiny doubt flickered in my mind. Something about the whole situation seemed too good to be true, like a story with missing pages. But I pushed that feeling aside and held on to the hope that this was the start of our happily ever after. The next day, I tried to set up utilities, electricity, water, and internet. But something didn't add up. The utility company had no record of the house or even the address Jake gave me. At first, I thought it was just a delay, maybe paperwork still in process. But as I called more times, their confusion grew. The address didn't exist in their system. I decided to visit the neighborhood during daylight. I walked around, hoping to meet a neighbor who could tell me about the house or Jake. But no one seemed to recognize the place. I asked about Jake, and the looks I got were blank or suspicious. One elderly lady even said, "That house hasn't been sold in years. You must be mistaken." My heart sank, but I told myself maybe they were just mistaken. I pulled out the documents Jake gave me and started to examine them carefully. The signatures looked off. Too neat, almost copied. Some stamps didn't match the official seals I'd seen on real paperwork before. The mortgage company named was unfamiliar, and the numbers didn't add up logically. Slowly, a creeping sense of doubt took hold. What if this whole thing was fake? I felt a swirl of emotions: denial, fear, and confusion. I wanted to believe Jake, But the evidence was mounting. Was he hiding something from me? Could this be a prank or worse? My mind raced with questions, but I didn't have answers. All I knew was that the perfect dream house might just be an illusion, and I needed to find out the truth before it was too late. After days of unanswered questions and mounting suspicion, I finally confronted Jake. We were sitting in our apartment, the same cozy place where we'd shared so many happy memories, but the air felt heavy and tense. My hands trembled as I held the folder of documents, my voice shaking as I asked, "Jake, what's really going on with that house? The utility company says the address doesn't exist. The neighbors don't know anything about it either." Jake's face tightened, his usual warmth replaced by something cold and guarded. "Emily, you're overreacting. I don't know why you're doubting me. I've worked hard for this, and you should trust me." I pressed further, my fear turning into frustration. "The paperwork looks fake. The mortgage company doesn't even exist. Why are you avoiding my questions?" Instead of answers, Jake grew defensive. "You're acting like I'm some kind of criminal. Maybe you don't trust me anymore. Maybe you never did." His words cut deep, and for a moment, I doubted myself. Had I been too suspicious? But the facts didn't lie. I needed the truth, no matter how painful. The conversation spiraled quickly into an argument. He accused me of not believing in us, while I accused him of hiding things. In the end, Jake stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I was left alone, my heart pounding, scared of what this could mean for us. But beneath the fear, a stubborn resolve took root. I was going to find out the truth, no matter what it cost. I knew I couldn't handle this alone, so I reached out to some people who might help me get answers. First was Mark, Jake's longtime friend. I hoped he'd shed some light on the situation, but Mark was evasive and vague whenever I asked about the house. "Jake's got everything under control," he'd say, dodging my questions. Next, I contacted Lisa, the real estate agent Jake claimed had helped him buy the house. But Lisa didn't respond to my calls or emails. Her silence made my stomach twist with suspicion. Feeling desperate, I decided to hire a private investigator. I gave him the documents and the address, asking him to verify everything. The next few days felt endless as I waited for his report. When it finally came, my worst fears were confirmed. The house wasn't Jake's. In fact, it belonged to someone else entirely, a family who had lived there for years and had no idea about any sale or contract. The documents Jake showed me were fake, cleverly forged to look real. My world shattered in that moment. I shared the findings with Mark and Lisa, hoping they'd explain or defend Jake, but there was only silence. The betrayal felt deeper than I could imagine. How could Jake deceive me like this? I felt numb, like I was watching my life fall apart from a distance. How had I missed the signs? The way Jake avoided simple questions, the strange secrecy, the feeling in my gut that something wasn't right. I had ignored so many red flags because I wanted to believe in him, in us. The heartbreak was overwhelming. I questioned everything about Jake's true character. Was he the man I thought I knew, or a stranger wearing a mask? The trust between us cracked, and I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. Every memory now seemed tainted by doubt. The late nights he claimed to work, the odd stories about his finances, and the promises of a future that suddenly felt like a lie. I felt betrayed and alone, wrestling with confusion and sorrow. This wasn't just about a fake house. It was about the man I loved deceiving me in the most painful way. The strain took a toll on my mental health. I felt anxious, unable to sleep, haunted by the question, Why? Despite everything, a small part of me held on to hope that I could find the strength to heal, whether that meant forgiving Jake or walking away forever. After the private investigator's report, I knew I couldn't just sit back and hope things would fix themselves. The house was fake, the documents forged, and Jake had deceived me in the worst way possible. I felt violated, and the only way forward was to take serious action. I went to the police and filed a report about the fraudulent documents and the scam. It was intimidating, but I needed an official record, not just for myself but to prevent Jake from hurting anyone else. The officers listened carefully and promised to investigate. Next, I consulted a lawyer to understand my legal options. Could I break off the engagement without financial penalty? Was there any risk I'd be held responsible for any debt linked to the fake house? The lawyer reassured me that since nothing was real, I wasn't legally tied to anything, but she warned me to be cautious moving forward. At the same time, I began preparing myself emotionally to cut ties with Jake. It was painful to think about ending something I had once believed was forever, but I knew I couldn't stay with someone who lied so deeply. Friends rallied around me, offering support and advice. Some shared their own experiences of betrayal, while others helped me stay grounded when doubt and sadness tried to take over. Their presence reminded me I wasn't alone. Taking these steps was hard, but necessary. It was my way of reclaiming control over my life and refusing to be a victim. Once I started taking real steps to expose the truth, Jake's behavior changed dramatically. At first, he denied everything, claiming I was paranoid and imagining things. He said the whole situation was a misunderstanding, blaming me for not trusting him. When I showed him the investigator's report and the police complaint, he tried a different tactic: gaslighting. He told me I was overreacting, that I was too sensitive, even accused me of trying to ruin his reputation. "You don't know the whole story," he said, twisting facts and emotions to confuse me. But this time, I stood firm. I knew what I had seen, what I had learned, and I refused to let him manipulate me into doubting myself. I documented every conversation and kept all evidence safe. Despite his manipulation attempts, there were moments when Jake seemed vulnerable, flashes of regret and sadness. But those moments were fleeting and often followed by anger or excuses. I realized that his gaslighting was a way to control me, to keep me dependent and uncertain. I refused to fall into that trap. Instead, I focused on building my strength, reminding myself why I deserved honesty and respect. Leaving the fake house behind wasn't just about moving out of a place. It was about moving on from a painful chapter in my life. I packed up the memories, both good and bad, and found a new apartment where I could start fresh. Rebuilding trust in myself and others was the hardest part. I spent time reflecting on the red flags I had ignored, the secrecy, the vague answers, the way things just didn't add up. Those lessons taught me to listen to my instincts and value honesty above all else. I also learned that trust is earned, not given blindly. It's okay to ask questions and demand transparency, especially when your future is on the line. With the support of my friends and family, I began to heal. I took small steps every day, reconnecting with old hobbies, setting personal goals, and opening my heart slowly but carefully to new possibilities. Looking ahead, I have hope. I know that my experience has made me stronger and wiser. While the betrayal hurt deeply, it won't define me. One day, I'll find someone who respects me and builds a future based on truth. No lies, no secrets. For now, I'm focused on me, my growth, my happiness, and reclaiming my life on my own terms. Thank you so much for listening and following my story. It wasn't easy to share such a personal experience, but I hope it helps anyone going through something similar. If you've ever faced betrayal or difficult relationships, please know you're not alone and your feelings are valid. I encourage you to share your own stories or advice in the comments or wherever you feel comfortable. Sometimes opening up can be the first step toward healing. If you found this story meaningful, please consider subscribing or following for more real-life stories, advice, and updates. I'll be sharing more experiences that touch on trust, relationships, and personal growth. Your support means the world to me and helps build a community where we can learn and grow together. Remember, no matter how dark things seem, there's always a way forward. Stay strong and take care.